Excuse me, ma'am, are you certain these are your seats?
Yes, sir, these are the seats on our boarding passes.
First class?
Yes, sir. Mom, is everything okay? It's okay, sweet.
Good afternoon, ma'am. May I see your boarding passes, please?
Of course.
One moment, please. The system is asking me to verify your reservation.
I don't know yet, sweet.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I'll have to ask you and your daughter to step outside the aircraft while we verify your booking. I understand.
Mom, did we do something wrong?
No, sweetheart. We leave with dignity.
Please don't touch her luggage. Before anyone asks her to leave, would you please verify her reservation one more time?
The cruelest judgments are often made before a single word is spoken. Morning sunlight spilled across the glass walls of the airport, turning polished floors into ribbons of gold. Travelers hurried toward departure gates with rolling suitcases, steaming coffee cups, and destinations waiting beyond the clouds. Everyone seemed to know exactly where they belonged. Everyone except one mother. She walked through the terminal with calm, measured steps, holding her young daughter's hand as though it were the most valuable thing in the world. She wore a clean but modest cream-colored sweater, dark blue jeans, comfortable sneakers, and carried a well-worn canvas tote over one shoulder. Nothing about her clothing asked for attention. Everything about her face invited trust. Her daughter skipped beside her, clutching a small backpack decorated with tiny blue stars. "Mom!" The little girl looked up with bright eyes. "Do you think the clouds really look different when you are inside an airplane?" Her mother smiled, the kind of smile that softened even ordinary mornings. "I have been wondering the very same thing." The little girl laughed. "Then we get to discover it together." "We certainly do." For nearly 3 years, that simple moment had lived inside a notebook hidden in a kitchen drawer. One dream, one small promise, one flight. Every extra dollar had quietly found its way into a savings envelope instead of restaurant dinners, new clothes, or weekend luxuries. Every sacrifice had been invisible to everyone except the little girl who watched her mother choose tomorrow over today. Now tomorrow had finally arrived. The electronic departure board confirmed their flight. Boarding had already begun. The little girl squeezed her mother's hand a little tighter. "I still cannot believe we are flying first class." Her mother leaned closer. "Neither can I." Then she whispered with a playful smile, "So let us promise each other something." "What?" "We enjoy every minute. No worrying. No comparing. No pretending to be anyone except ourselves." The little girl nodded immediately. "I promise." Together they approached the boarding lane reserved for first-class passengers. A gate agent welcomed them with a friendly smile before scanning both boarding passes. A soft confirmation tone sounded. "Enjoy your flight." "Thank you." Everything seemed perfectly ordinary, until they stepped through the aircraft door. Several passengers were already arranging luggage inside the spacious first-class cabin. Soft leather seats, warm lighting, polished wood accents, and quiet conversations created an atmosphere of effortless luxury. The little girl looked around with silent amazement. "It is beautiful." Her mother gently brushed a loose strand of hair behind the child's ear. "Remember, people matter more than places." "I know, but it is still beautiful." "It certainly is." As they moved farther into the cabin, conversation slowly began to fade. One passenger looked up, then another. A woman paused while fastening her seatbelt. A businessman lowered his newspaper. Their eyes lingered just a little too long. The mother noticed. She had seen those looks before. Not angry, not curious, simply measuring. She kept walking. Row 2, window and aisle. Exactly as printed on the boarding passes folded carefully inside her hand. Before she could place her bag beneath the seat, a sharply dressed man across the aisle frowned. He looked from her sweater to her canvas tote, then back to her face. "I think there has been some mistake." His voice was loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "I believe those seats belong to first class." The cabin grew unexpectedly quiet. The little girl looked up at her mother. Confusion slowly replaced excitement. Her small fingers tightened around her mother's hand, and from several rows behind them, a tall man in a perfectly tailored navy suit quietly lifted his eyes from the book resting in his lap, watching everything unfold without saying a single word. The businessman slowly rose from his seat. He adjusted the cuff of his expensive jacket before speaking again. I do not mean to offend anyone. His tone suggested otherwise. But first-class tickets are not exactly easy to come by. A few passengers exchanged uneasy glances. No one interrupted him. Not yet. The little girl looked from the stranger to her mother. Mom! Her voice was barely above a whisper. Did we sit in the wrong place? Her mother's expression never changed. She gently knelt until they were eye to eye. No, sweetheart. We are exactly where our tickets say we belong. The child searched her mother's face. You are sure? I am completely sure. That answer settled the little girl's breathing. She nodded once and quietly stepped closer. A flight attendant approached with a courteous smile. Good morning. May I help with something? The businessman spoke before anyone else could. I believe there may be a seating mistake. I think these passengers belong in another cabin. The flight attendant accepted the boarding passes from the mother without the slightest change in expression. Allow me just a moment. Thank you. The mother smiled politely. There is no hurry. Several passengers continued watching. One woman leaned toward her husband. I knew something seemed unusual. Her husband shrugged. I suppose we will find out. Another passenger quietly closed his laptop. The atmosphere inside the cabin had become heavier than the luggage overhead. The little girl looked toward the window she had dreamed about for years. Then back at the boarding pass now resting in the attendant's hands. Mom! What if they make us leave? Her mother gently wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Then we leave with kindness. The little girl frowned. But it would not be fair. No, it would not. She brushed a strand of hair away from her daughter's face. But we never let someone else's behavior decide our own. Those words landed softly. Even the nearest passengers heard them. From several rows behind, the tall man in the navy suit quietly closed the book resting in his lap. He had noticed the exchange from the very beginning. Now he watched more carefully. Not the businessman. Not the flight attendant. The mother. Pressure had a way of revealing character. Most people defended themselves immediately. Some argued. Others demanded respect. She did none of those things. She simply protected her daughter's peace. The flight attendant walked toward the front galley with the boarding passes. Another crew member joined her near the reservation screen. Quiet voices followed. Verification. Seat numbers. Passenger records. The businessman folded his arms. I am sure this will be sorted out. His confidence sounded almost rehearsed. Across the aisle, an elderly gentleman looked uncomfortable. He glanced toward the mother. I hope this is only a misunderstanding. She offered him the same warm smile she had offered everyone else. I believe it is. There was no bitterness, only patience. The little girl reached into her small backpack and carefully removed a worn notebook with a blue elastic band wrapped around it. She held it against her chest. Her mother noticed immediately. You brought it. I did. I wanted to look at it during our flight. The mother smiled. I am glad you remembered. Neither of them opened the notebook. Not yet. Whatever was written inside clearly mattered. The tall man continued watching from behind. Something about that notebook caught his attention. Not because it looked expensive. Quite the opposite. It had been carried for years. Its corners were softened by time. Its pages slightly curved from being opened again and again. Objects like that usually carried stories far more valuable than money. Near the front of the cabin, the flight attendant looked back toward row 2 before turning once more to the reservation screen. Her expression slowly shifted. Not toward concern, toward quiet surprise. She picked up the boarding passes again, then started walking back down the aisle. The silence inside first class grew so complete that even the smallest footsteps seemed impossible to ignore. The flight attendant stopped beside row 2. She held both boarding passes carefully. Her professional smile returned first. Then came something unexpected. Relief. Ma'am. Thank you for waiting. She offered the boarding passes back with both hands. I have confirmed your reservation. Everything is correct. These seats belong to you and your daughter. No one spoke. The words settled over the cabin with surprising weight. The little girl blinked. then looked at her mother. "I told you." Her voice carried innocent certainty. Her mother smiled softly. "You certainly did." She accepted the boarding passes without triumph. "Thank you for taking the time to check." The flight attendant hesitated. "I also owe you an apology. The verification should have happened privately." "I am very sorry." The mother simply nodded. "I understand. I know you were trying to help." Grace often arrived more quietly than people expected. Several passengers lowered their eyes. The businessman who had questioned her looked toward the window instead of the aisle. For the first time since boarding, confidence disappeared from his face. The little girl slipped the boarding passes into the front pocket of her backpack. Then she carefully unwrapped the blue band around the worn notebook. Her mother glanced down. "Would you like to show me?" The child nodded. She opened the notebook slowly. Every page carried neat handwriting. Small goals, tiny victories, simple dreams. The earliest pages were dated nearly 3 years earlier. "Save $5 this week." Done. "Skip eating out this month." Done. "Repair the washing machine." Done. "Buy 1 airplane ticket." Then another. Still saving. The mother quietly smiled as she turned another page. Near the center of the notebook, one sentence had been written inside a hand-drawn heart. "Take my daughter on her first airplane trip before her 9th birthday." A fresh blue checkmark rested beside it. The little girl pointed proudly. "We finally did it." Her mother's eyes became bright. "Yes, we finally did." Across the aisle, the elderly gentleman noticed the notebook. "So that is why today matters." The mother nodded. "It has been a long journey." He smiled warmly. "I believe the best journeys usually are." The businessman happened to overhear every word. His shoulders slowly relaxed. He looked again at the notebook, not as an object, as evidence. He suddenly realized he had judged years of sacrifice by a single sweater and a canvas bag. From several rows behind, the tall man in the navy suit quietly observed the same moment. He had built companies worth billions. He had negotiated international agreements. Yet nothing in those achievements resembled what he was seeing now. Promise. Kept $1 at a time. The flight attendant returned once more. "There is one additional note on your reservation." The mother looked surprised. "There is." The attendant smiled. "You purchased these tickets more than 2 years ago. You planned this trip a very long time." The little girl looked up at her mother. "You never told me it took that long." Her mother gently squeezed her hand. Some surprises become more beautiful when they arrive at the right moment. The child leaned against her shoulder. "I am glad you waited." "So am I." The businessman slowly stood. He opened his mouth as though preparing to speak. No words came. Not yet. Sometimes the hardest apology begins with silence. The tall man quietly closed his leather notebook. He had watched enough to understand one important truth. Real character never becomes louder under pressure. It simply becomes easier to recognize. Outside the aircraft, the final baggage carts rolled away from the gate. Inside, an entire first-class cabin had begun seeing one remarkable mother very differently. And the man who had remained silent since boarding knew. His own moment was getting closer. The cabin doors closed with a quiet, reassuring sound. A gentle hush settled over first class as the final passengers found their seats. Outside the window, airport vehicles moved with practiced precision beneath the bright morning sky. Inside, something far more meaningful had already begun moving. The elderly gentleman seated across the aisle struggled to lift a small leather carry-on into the overhead compartment. He reached once, then again. The bag barely moved. Without hesitation, the single mother quietly rose from her seat. "I can help." The gentleman looked relieved. "Thank you." Together they lifted the suitcase safely into place. "There we are." He smiled warmly. "My granddaughter always reminds me that accepting help is sometimes just as important as offering it." The single mother returned the smile. "She sounds like a very thoughtful young lady. I believe she would like you." The little girl laughed softly. "I already like him." The gentleman chuckled. "I think we have become friends." Several nearby passengers watched the exchange. Only minutes earlier, many of those same people had silently questioned whether she belonged in first class. Now they watched her help someone else before even sitting down herself. Character revealed itself most clearly when no reward was expected. The businessman who had challenged her earlier slowly removed his glasses. He watched quietly. Every assumption he had made now felt heavier than before. The flight attendant approached once again. "Ma'am, I wanted to apologize personally. The way this situation unfolded did not reflect the experience we hope every passenger receives." The single mother answered gently, "I appreciate you saying that. You were willing to verify the facts. That matters." The attendant looked genuinely moved. "Thank you for your understanding." As she continued down the aisle, another crew member whispered, "She has every reason to be upset." The senior attendant nodded. "And yet she keeps making everyone else feel comfortable." From several rows behind, the tall man in the navy suit quietly observed every exchange. He noticed something few others had. The little girl never looked frightened anymore. She looked proud, not because they had been proven right, because her mother had shown her how dignity looked under pressure. The aircraft slowly began pushing back from the gate. A gentle vibration rolled beneath the cabin floor. The little girl leaned toward the window with growing excitement. "We are moving." Her mother smiled. "The adventure has officially begun." The child reached into the blue notebook once more. She opened a page near the back. "What are you reading?" "Our promise." The little girl turned the notebook so her mother could see. Written neatly across the page were two simple sentences. "Always be grateful. Always be kind." The mother quietly traced the words with her fingertips. "When did you write that?" "Last week. I wanted to remember." Her mother's eyes glistened. "I think you already do." The businessman overheard those words. He lowered his head. For the first time that morning, embarrassment replaced certainty. Across the aisle, the elderly gentleman smiled to himself. Some children learned from lectures. Others learned by watching one remarkable parent live exactly what she believed. The captain welcomed everyone aboard through the cabin speakers. Passengers fastened their seat belts. Conversations softened. The engines gradually grew louder. The tall man finally closed the leather notebook resting beside him. Inside, he wrote only one sentence before placing the pen away. "The strongest leaders are often the quietest examples." He looked toward the mother and daughter one more time. He had not spoken a single word since boarding. He had not needed to. Sometimes the most important decision was knowing exactly when silence should end. And as the aircraft slowly turned toward the runway, he realized that moment was approaching much sooner than anyone in the cabin expected. The aircraft rolled onto the runway with quiet confidence. A steady roar filled the cabin as the engines gathered strength. The little girl reached for her mother's hand without taking her eyes off the window. "We are really doing this." Her mother smiled. "Yes, we are." The airplane surged forward. Buildings blurred into streaks of silver and glass. Then, almost without warning, the wheels left the ground. The little girl gasped. "We are flying." Tears quietly gathered in her mother's eyes. Not from fear, from fulfillment. A promise that had taken years to build had finally risen into the sky. As the city slowly disappeared beneath scattered clouds, the seatbelt sign remained illuminated. Passengers relaxed into their seats. The tension that had filled the cabin before departure slowly drifted away. A flight attendant approached with warm towels and a welcoming smile. She paused beside the mother. "May I bring your daughter some apple juice once we begin beverage service?" The little girl looked toward her mother before answering. Her mother nodded gently. "That would be wonderful." The attendant smiled. "It will be my pleasure." Only a short time earlier, she had approached this row with uncertainty. Now she approached it with genuine warmth. Small moments often revealed the biggest changes. The businessman across the aisle slowly leaned forward. "Ma'am." His voice carried none of its earlier confidence. She turned toward him. "Yes." He hesitated for several seconds. "I judged you before I knew anything about you." He looked down at his folded hands. "I was wrong. I am sincerely sorry." The cabin became unexpectedly quiet again. Several nearby passengers glanced toward the conversation. The mother answered without hesitation. "Thank you for saying that." A gentle smile crossed her face. I hope we both enjoy the rest of the flight. There was no accusation, no reminder of what had happened, only an invitation to move forward. The businessman nodded slowly. You are far kinder than I deserve. She shook her head softly. I believe everyone deserves the chance to become better. Those words lingered long after the conversation ended. From several rows behind, the tall man listened carefully. He had expected grace. He had not expected wisdom delivered so simply. The beverage service began a few minutes later. Crystal glasses reflected the afternoon sunlight. Fresh coffee filled the cabin with a comforting aroma. The little girl accepted her apple juice with both hands. This feels very fancy. Her mother laughed quietly. I think it is still just apple juice. Maybe. But today makes everything taste better. The elderly gentleman across the aisle smiled. I completely agree. The little girl opened the blue notebook once more. This time she carefully wrote today's date beneath the checked promise. Then she added another sentence in neat handwriting. Kind people make every place feel like home. Her mother looked down and gently squeezed her shoulder. That is beautiful. I learned it today. The tall man quietly noticed the sentence from across the aisle. He reached for his own leather notebook. Inside he wrote only 5 words. Kindness always leaves an address. He closed the notebook slowly. Years of leading companies had taught him how to recognize talent. Today, an ordinary mother had reminded him how to recognize greatness. The captain's voice returned over the speaker. We have reached our cruising altitude. You are now free to move about the cabin. Soft chimes echoed overhead. Passengers unfastened their seat belts. The businessman glanced toward the tall man for only a brief moment. Recognition slowly spread across his face. His expression shifted from curiosity to disbelief. The man who had quietly observed everything since boarding was no ordinary traveler. And within the next few moments, the entire cabin was about to discover exactly who had been sitting among them all along. The quiet chime of the seatbelt sign echoed softly through the cabin. Passengers stretched, reached for their bags, and resumed gentle conversations. Outside, endless white clouds drifted beneath the wings. Inside, a very different journey was about to begin. The tall man in the navy suit slowly unfastened his seatbelt. He stood with calm confidence. There was nothing theatrical about the movement. No attempt to draw attention. No expectation that anyone should notice. Yet they did. The senior flight attendant looked toward him and immediately smiled. Good afternoon, Mr. Carter. It is wonderful to have you with us again. The businessman across the aisle froze. His eyes widened. You are. He stopped himself. Several passengers quietly turned toward the standing gentleman. The elderly traveler smiled knowingly. I thought I recognized him. The flight attendant continued politely. Is there anything we may do for you during the remainder of your flight? Ethan Carter shook his head with a warm smile. You already have. He glanced toward the mother and her daughter before continuing. You reminded everyone that good service begins with treating every person with dignity. The attendant lowered her eyes modestly. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Ethan turned slightly toward the passengers nearby. I hope you will forgive me for interrupting your flight for just a moment. No one objected. In fact, the cabin became remarkably still. His voice remained gentle, measured, comforting. I spend much of my life surrounded by successful people. I meet remarkable executives, investors, and innovators every week. He paused briefly. But today, I met someone whose success cannot be measured by a title. His eyes rested on the single mother. I watched a mother remain calm while others questioned her place. I watched her protect her daughter's peace before protecting her own pride. I watched her thank people after they doubted her. And I watched her help another passenger without hesitation. No one looked away. The businessman quietly lowered his head. The woman who had whispered during boarding folded her hands together. Ethan continued, That is not weakness. That is strength. His words were never loud. They simply carried the weight of sincerity. We often admire people because of what they own. I believe we should admire people because of who they become when life is difficult. The little girl looked proudly at her mother. I told you everyone would see. Her mother smiled gently. They are seeing kindness. Not me. Ethan nodded. Exactly. He looked toward the child. Your mother has already given you something more valuable than any first-class ticket. The little girl tilted her head. What is that? A way of living that no one can ever take away. She smiled brightly. I want to be just like her. I believe you already are. Soft laughter spread through the cabin. Not mocking. Warm. Comfortable. Healing. The businessman slowly stood. He faced the mother directly. I owe you more than an apology. I owe you gratitude. You reminded me that I had forgotten how easily appearances can deceive. The mother answered with quiet grace. We all have moments we wish we could do differently. What matters is what we choose after those moments. He nodded slowly. I will remember that. The senior flight attendant looked around the cabin. Something had changed. Passengers who had boarded as strangers were now exchanging genuine smiles. Simple conversations began. Kindness had quietly replaced suspicion. Ethan returned to his seat without another word. He had never raised his voice. He had never mentioned his wealth. He had never used authority to embarrass anyone. He simply honored someone whose character deserved to be seen. As sunlight poured through the cabin windows, reflecting across polished wood and quiet faces, one truth settled gently over everyone aboard. Real first class had never been located in row 2. It had been sitting inside one mother's heart from the very beginning. The atmosphere inside the cabin felt different now. Not louder, simply lighter. Conversations flowed more naturally. Strangers who had avoided eye contact during boarding now exchanged quiet smiles across the aisle. The little girl leaned against the window, watching the clouds drift beneath them. They looked like mountains made of cotton. Her mother smiled. I used to imagine the same thing when I was your age. You flew before? Her mother laughed softly. No, I simply imagined it. The little girl looked at her with surprise. You imagined clouds before you ever touched them? Her mother nodded. Sometimes dreams arrive long before opportunities do. Those words lingered in the quiet space between them. A few rows behind, Ethan Carter overheard every sentence. He smiled to himself. He had spent years studying business strategies. Yet this ordinary mother continued teaching life lessons without even realizing it. The meal service began. Flight attendants carefully placed warm dishes on polished tray tables. Fresh bread, seasonal fruit, and steaming coffee filled the cabin with comforting aromas. The little girl studied every detail with wide eyes. It feels like a holiday. Her mother gently unfolded the cloth napkin across her daughter's lap. Then let us enjoy it like one. Before touching her own meal, the little girl quietly looked toward the elderly gentleman. Would you like my extra butter? The gentleman laughed warmly. That is very thoughtful, but I think you should keep it. She smiled. My mother says sharing makes food taste better. The gentleman glanced toward the mother. I can certainly see where she learned that. The businessman listened from across the aisle. Earlier that morning, he had believed wealth determined class. Now, a child with a simple meal had quietly dismantled that belief. After lunch, Ethan slowly walked toward the front galley for a cup of coffee. As he returned, he paused beside the mother's seat. May I? She looked up. Of course. He remained standing only for a moment. I wanted to thank you. She looked genuinely confused. For what? For reminding everyone here that dignity cannot be purchased. She smiled modestly. I only tried to protect my daughter. You accomplished much more than that. The little girl looked between them. Mom protects everybody. The mother laughed quietly. I am not sure that is true. Ethan smiled. I believe it is. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. Not for a business card. Not for a check. Instead, he removed a small fountain pen with a polished walnut finish. My father gave me this when I accepted my first leadership position. I have carried it for almost 20 years. The mother immediately shook her head. I cannot accept something that personal. I understand. He nodded. Then allow me to ask something instead. She waited. When your daughter is older, and someone doubts her because of appearances, please remind her about today. The little girl answered before her mother could speak. I already will. Everyone nearby smiled. Ethan carefully returned the pen to his pocket. It appears she does not need much reminding. No. Her mother looked lovingly at her daughter. She remembers what truly matters. A gentle silence followed. Not uncomfortable. Peaceful. The captain announced that favorable winds would allow them to arrive nearly 30 minutes ahead of schedule. Soft applause rose from several passengers. The little girl whispered excitedly, "We are getting there faster." Her mother nodded. Sometimes life surprises us in wonderful ways. Across the aisle, the businessman quietly opened the notes application on his phone. He typed only one sentence before locking the screen. Never assume someone's story by looking at their clothes. He stared at the words for several seconds. Some lessons deserve to stay forever. As sunlight slowly shifted across the cabin, Ethan looked once more toward the mother and her daughter. He had boarded this flight expecting a few peaceful hours above the clouds. Instead, he had found something infinitely rarer. A family whose quiet character had changed an entire cabin without demanding a single moment of attention. And although none of them knew it yet, the most meaningful conversation of the journey had not even begun. The cabin lights softened as the afternoon sun drifted behind a blanket of white clouds. The journey had settled into a peaceful rhythm. Conversations faded. Pages turned. Coffee cups rested quietly on polished tray tables. For a little while, silence became its own kind of comfort. The little girl closed her notebook and looked at her mother. "When we get home, can we start saving for another adventure?" Her mother laughed gently. "We have not even landed from this one." "I know, but dreams should not have long vacations." Her mother smiled with quiet pride. "You sound wiser every day." Across the aisle, the elderly gentleman chuckled. "I believe that notebook deserves its own passport." The little girl grinned. "It already travels with me everywhere." Ethan Carter looked toward them once again. This time he made a decision. Not as a billionaire. Not as a chairman. Simply as another passenger. He stepped beside their row. "May I sit here for a moment?" The empty seat across the aisle had become available after its passenger moved to speak with family farther back. The mother nodded politely. "Of course." Ethan settled into the seat. For a few seconds, none of them spoke. Sometimes respect began with allowing silence to breathe. Finally, Ethan smiled. "May I ask you something?" "Certainly." "What inspired you to save for this trip instead of choosing something easier?" The mother looked toward the window. "I wanted my daughter to remember possibility." She paused. "There were years when every dollar had a purpose before I even earned it. Rent, groceries, school supplies. There was never much left." The little girl quietly reached for her mother's hand. Her mother continued, "But I realized something. If I only taught her how to survive, she might forget how to dream." Ethan listened without interruption. "So every week, I saved a little. Sometimes $5. Sometimes only $1. But every deposit carried the same message." The little girl smiled. "We are still going." Her mother laughed softly. "Exactly." Ethan nodded slowly. "My father used to tell me that successful people invest money. He also believed extraordinary people invest hope." The mother smiled. "He sounds like a remarkable man." He was. "And today, he would have admired you." The compliment lingered quietly between them. The mother lowered her eyes. "Thank you. I do not always feel remarkable." "You do not have to," Ethan answered gently. "The people who change lives rarely notice they are doing it." The little girl looked curiously at Ethan. "What do you do?" He smiled. "I help people build companies." She thought carefully. "My mom builds people." The words landed with astonishing simplicity. Even Ethan laughed. "I believe she does." Nearby passengers smiled as they overheard the conversation. The businessman across the aisle quietly removed his wedding ring for a moment. He turned it thoughtfully between his fingers. His wife had often reminded him that kindness mattered more than status. Somewhere along the way, he had forgotten. He slipped the ring back onto his hand, not as jewelry. As a promise, the captain announced that descent would begin in approximately 20 minutes. Passengers slowly returned laptops to their bags. Window shades opened. Below them, the coastline slowly appeared beyond scattered clouds. The little girl pressed closer to the glass. "It looks so small," her mother whispered. "Everything does from far enough away." Ethan looked out the same window. So do pride. So do mistakes. But kindness. He smiled warmly. Kindness somehow looks even bigger. The mother nodded. "I hope my daughter always sees the world that way." "I think she will." Ethan stood and straightened his jacket. "Thank you for sharing your story with me." The mother shook her head gently. "No, thank you for listening." As Ethan walked back toward his own seat, he understood something that years of board meetings had never taught him. Some conversations lasted only minutes, yet they quietly reshaped an entire life. And waiting beyond the arrival gate, a decision he had already made was about to transform theirs as well. The landing gear lowered with a steady mechanical hum. A gentle vibration passed through the cabin. The little girl smiled at the sound. "We are almost there." Her mother nodded. "Yes, but I hope you remember. The best part of this trip was never the destination." The child leaned her head against her mother's shoulder. "I know. It was getting here together." Outside the window, the coastline grew larger. Roads appeared. Buildings returned. The world slowly welcomed them back. The aircraft touched the runway with surprising grace. A quiet burst of applause spread through the cabin. Passengers smiled at one another. Felt less like strangers arriving, and more like neighbors returning home. As the airplane taxied toward the gate, everyone remained seated. No one seemed eager to rush. The businessman turned toward the mother one final time. "I have been thinking." She looked at him kindly. "I hope that is a good thing." He smiled. "It is. When I return home, I am going to call my daughter. I have been too busy. I do not want success to cost me the people I love." The mother answered softly. "I think she will be very happy to hear your voice." He nodded. "Thank you for reminding me what really matters." She simply smiled. "You reminded yourself." The aircraft finally stopped. The seatbelt sign disappeared. Passengers slowly stood. Overhead compartments opened. Coats were lifted down. Carry-on bags rolled into the aisle. No one pushed. No one hurried. Something about the flight had quietly changed everyone. The elderly gentleman carefully retrieved his suitcase. Before leaving, he shook the mother's hand. "I hope your daughter never stops writing in that notebook." The little girl answered proudly. "I already started my next page." "What does it say?" She opened the notebook. Written neatly across the fresh page were only 7 words. "Dream kindly. Work patiently. Love people every day." The gentleman smiled. "I believe the world needs more pages like that." Ethan Carter approached them one last time before the cabin door opened. He carried a simple white envelope. No company logo. No signature on the outside. He held it toward the mother. "I hope you will accept this." She looked uncertain. "I cannot accept money." "It is not money. It is an invitation." She slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "If you ever wish to return to school, begin a business, or pursue any dream you postponed while raising your daughter, my foundation would be honored to help you apply. No promises. No special treatment. Only an opportunity that you have already earned through your character." Below the note was one telephone number. Nothing more. The mother's eyes became bright. "I do not know what to say." Ethan smiled warmly. "You already said everything. Today." The little girl looked up. "Mom, you always told me that kindness comes back." Her mother gently wiped away a tear. "Sometimes. It takes the next flight." Soft laughter filled the doorway. Passengers quietly stepped into the jet bridge. The businessman paused beside Ethan. "I spent years believing influence came from power." Ethan looked toward the mother and daughter walking ahead together. "No, it comes from example." The businessman nodded thoughtfully. "I understand that now." The mother and her daughter reached the terminal windows. Beyond the glass, sunlight covered the airport in warm afternoon gold. The little girl slipped her small hand into her mother's. "So, what is our next dream?" Her mother smiled toward the endless sky. "We will discover it together." Behind them, Ethan watched for only a moment before walking in the opposite direction. He had another meeting waiting, another company to lead, another busy schedule to return to. Yet somehow, the most valuable investment of his entire day had never appeared on a calendar. It had been seated in first class beside a mother who refused to let hardship define her, and a little girl who learned that dignity could fly higher than any airplane. Because people may forget who wore the finest suit. They may forget who held the most important title, but they rarely forget the quiet soul who answered humiliation with grace, judgment with kindness, and hardship with hope. And perhaps that is life's greatest secret. The highest seat is never reserved for the wealthiest passenger. It is quietly earned by the person who helps everyone around them rise.